Alright, the dog. I am Zateo, and I'm here to do your replay analysis. Let's see what you do. You got some questions here that I'll try to answer. I made a couple of notes in case I forget some things. I can address it at the end, type of thing. Your questions have to do with, dealing with arbiters better, having the right army composition, and then at the ends, you do this big push, and you're wondering if it would have been better to pork or eco. And I'll have a lot to say about that one because there's a lot of intuition with that, I feel. So I'm going to try to give you the knowledge to consider what you need to do so that you can do or so that you can make the best choice out of a given situation. So already opening up vehicle, I would argue I don't think you really needed to have this many wind turbines. It really depends on how high the wind is at the moment when you build them. But arguably you want around 60 um, energy income to build this, which you had a little bit extra. So you could have probably gotten away with like just 3 instead of 4. But I totally understand wanting to get 4 considering the wind can dip. It just, adjustments are required sometimes. Oh yeah, so I'll put it on your view. I'm not going to put it on your camera because I want to be able to see everything um, when I want to see it, but yeah, I'll put it on your view so that it's not biased towards anything. Speed up a little bit. Alright, so you need a little bit more energy at this point. You're adding a solar, okay, not bad. Good call, wind wasn't too high, but it takes a while to build all the winds, so like it's fine having a solar, especially when wind can dip to 0. Alright, so your first cons are getting some metal. Nice. You guys are going out, scouting, doing a good job just like keeping keeping an eye on the fronts and seeing where your units need to actually be. It's all good stuff. I'd argue at some points you might want to reclaim these little bits of metal here. Because well, it's not a lot, so I mean I can understand ignoring it for now. But yeah, bit of a fight here. Lots of ticks coming out. All right, you move your commander to follow a little bit. Okay, I'm glad you did not follow them all the way the fuck back up here, because that takes a lot of time out of your commander's day. Nice response though. You got some blitzes coming in here. Nice. You don't even lose the mechs, so that's really awesome. And you're even gifted a Lazarus for free. That's always nice. So very good start here. Adding on some nanos, okay. Shoving your opponent back. Yeah, you know that all these are just ticks, so you don't have to worry too much. Ooh, nice resbot, a second one for free. Nice to see. But I'd argue you'd almost want this radar first. Well, I mean, technically you want the metal first. I mean, and you do know that your opponent has some stuff here, and you do have a radar back here. So I mean, it's not the end of the world, but yeah, having a forward radar is always really nice early on, so you can be able to catch anything that tries to run by a little bit easier. But you do a fine job, so not a big deal. Let's look back at the base real quick. Alright, so you're doing advanced solar. Okay, so here, I would argue on this map, a max of 18 wind is really nice. The average is 13.4. I would not get any advanced solars, just because wind is actually going to technically be better. I'll try to remember to leave you a link to a spreadsheet that someone made, but it provides the like how much energy you're getting per second for how much metal you're spending on that energy. And wind turbines on this map are very, very good. In fact, they're better than APHIS. They're actually better energy per metal than APHIS, but they do take longer to build, and they're not as consistent. The wind can dip down below that average, so like it's not bad to have a fusion or an APHIS when you have good wind. It's just wind is not bad at all to have. So this is actually really good. To have like a ton of wind queued up is actually fine on this kind of map. I would say like if the wind max was like, say like 15 or so, and that average was like dipping closer to like 9-ish or 10-ish, then the advanced solar is makes more sense. And if it's below that, I would definitely, you can still start with wind, but you're going to want to get more advanced solars in that situation. Like um what's it called? All that glitters, I tend to get more advanced solar than winds, even though I like to get some winds. Just having those advanced solars is nice. It's just the advanced solar is not very cost efficient in terms of metal. Solar is even worse, so you want to get rid of this as soon as possible so that you can spend more metal on army. The converters I don't mind. If this was a solar map, I would say don't get converters whatsoever. But it is a nice wind map, so like it's not the end of the world. I would just argue, you want to try to not get too much because um, the more you get, the more time it takes for it to pay off. Um, like if you think about the cost of the wind turbines, like each turbine is what, 37? Yeah, 37 for Armada, which is not much at all. And if you convert it when it's high, it's not, it's quite nice actually. Um, but if you were to convert like basic solars or advanced solars, it takes a lot more metals. So, for each converter, since they only give +1, it's like it takes a while for it to actually pay off. But yeah, I don't mind it on this map again. So you got a nice like standing army here, just kind of chilling. You got a Whistler even for some extra spotting. Put on some line of sight. Yeah. Speed up a little bit. So you see two players here. And you got, I don't know, okay, so this guy here he's actually mainly going this way. Whoops, that's not an arrow. I mean, that's the wrong facing. I meant to draw this. Alright, come on, hands. You can do this. Oh, gosh. Alright, he's going this way. He has some units, some stuff up here. Arguably, these should have been yours, but, that's going to help him with this here. And so, since he took that, like, arguably, like, he might need more help here, especially since you're against two. And if an ally does that, you can ask, like, if you could have those maybe, since you're fighting two. But definitely don't, like, there's no guarantee, like, you can't, like, hold a gun to his head to give it to you or anything like that. So, but you can politely ask and see if he, gives it to you or not. If he doesn't, then he doesn't. But something to consider, because that would help a lot. And that's a lot of ticks. He's dancing. He's trying to push in. Actually, you can see the marking from yellow, even though I don't have his view on. So I think what they're trying to do is, like, if they can clear the pork and stuff that you have here, then the ticks can run through and then maybe do some eco damage. But you do a nice job holding on. You got some, light laser towers. You got all your tanks sitting back here too. I like the more defensive posture considering you're up against two. I wonder what all these dots are. In fact, I'm going to turn this off for a second. Oh, okay. Yeah, wow. So that's a lot of light laser towers. This is actually a bad, like, considering it's 2 against 1, they do not need this. Like, having all this pork is, like, if this was units, they could maybe just, like, push through you, but since it's all light laser towers, they can't really push you too hard, so you're actually defending against, like, 1.5, or, like, it's like less stuff than there should have been to push you. Let's go back to your view. Come on. There we go. Alright, turn this back on. Oh, that's pretty fast. Let's see, commander. Alright. So the nice thing about tanks is they can take some damage and retreat. And in fact, right now, you're at the skill level where you need to do more things. Like, speed becomes more of a hindrance at this point. Like, doing things like repairing your units is becomes a bigger and bigger deal the higher up you go and the more skilled players you're up against. But right here, your commander's idle, So he could be repairing. What I like to do if I have my commander at the front, and usually I do because I play a lot of frontline, um, I'll queue up the buildings that I want him to build, and then I'll also queue up, hey, repair the area, type of thing. And I'll also put on repeat so that like, if new units come in to the area that are damaged and there's no units in that area that are, from the previous time when you did the repair, it'll still repair those units. It'll like consistently repair around the commander, and it's very helpful to just have that at the end of your queue. And then if you add other stuff to your queue, then you can go back to repairing at the end. But yeah, it definitely would help to keep like say like this tank alive. The other thing you can do is like people will put up construction turrets back here just for repair. Repair is free, so like there's really no harm in doing it. It's just like the cost of the turrets themselves can be a little bit annoying. But yeah, you're doing a nice little dance here, going in and out. Looks like they have a jammer and they have an HLT, so you don't actually get to see much here anymore. Let's see, do you still have that Whistler? Doesn't look like it. Let's just do a, oh, well, he's back here. Yeah, so this Whistler, they have a little bit more line of sight. They have 620, compared to medium tanks at only 325. So, 620 is a big deal. So ideally you'd want this Whistler a little closer, just to provide a little bit more vision. And then I'll make the jammer not as useful for them. And then you wouldn't have to get quite as close to attack back. But yeah, I like that you're testing the water, so you're kind of just like skirting around. You're doing some nice circles even with your units, so that's good. That's something I see a lot of people, yeah, see like, I see that more often than not where people will, they'll say this tank, like they'll rush in and they'll be like, oh, I want to turn back, and they'll just go right back the other way. They'll go like this. But what you want to do, I don't know if you did it intentionally or not before, but what you want to do is drive your tanks like in this like circular motion, so that's it's more like you tell them to go up here and then you tell them to go back down this way and then back up here, and like that way they're not making big turns, that where they have to like stop and put it into there is no reverse, but like they got to stop and like slowly turn and then like and change direction. But if you do a bigger, wider angle with your turning, it'll be a little bit like they'll just keep moving quickly, or quicker anyway. Helps a lot if you're trying to avoid taking some of those shots that are going out towards you. Green doing a little bit of help here. Unfortunately doesn't get a ton done there, but you at least got to see what was there, so that's always nice to have. Are these okay? So one of the things that's nice about artillery, especially when you're up against a jammer, is they have that AoE, they got that nice range. You don't necessarily need to see the units or anything to actually use them in attack. So what you can do is I'm gonna take off your player view just so I can select your units. I hate that I can't select your units there. But what you can do is select your artillery, hit A, and draw a line. Like you can draw a line over their units like this, and then the artillery was set up to attack those locations. And obviously you don't know exactly where their units are, except for maybe the HLT and stuff like that. Whoops, I meant to do this. But whoops, let's go back to your view. Okay, so you know where the statics are because there were some aircraft that just saw them. And so you have these like, these blueprints or shadows or whatever you want to call them. And so these artillery can manually attack these. They won't automatically do it because they're, they can't technically see them, but you can still manually do it. And also artillery can outrange an HLT. So don't be afraid to, you know where it is. If you do like an attack on the location of where it is, you can actually just kill it and it won't be able to fight back. Obviously there's units here too, so you have to worry about those, and so you might want to like try to skirt them back by manually attacking that area first, or scouting to see where the units are to attack that location. But yeah, That's something to think about. That could help you just destroy this. And if you destroy it, then you can prevent them from having all this. I don't know about like it gets risky pushing up this hill. It gets kind of risky pushing down here. Though I would say this is a little bit safer. Uphill, you don't have the sight, like the hill blocks the sight. Whereas downhill, like while you're going down it, you can see down below. So it's a little bit safer than if you were to push up there. I'll get more into that later because I know you had some questions about that stuff. But yeah, I guess really quickly, um, just to say like yeah, it's nice to keep them away from this metal, and you can claim maybe these two. You can try to claim these three, but just know that they'll probably die. Either way, it's good to have them if you can, even if it is just for a little bit. It does not take long for a mechs to pay for itself. So even I would actually also say that this mechs here you should already have retaken. Even if it keeps dying, just keep rebuilding it because it usually pays off. But yeah, not bad. Let's see. Let's take a look back here. Yeah, more advanced solars. I just don't really like the advanced solars in this situation. I would just get maybe an extra con bot and just have like 2 or 3 extra con bots doing more wins because that's average is so nice. Also, if you're going to be doing wins, yes, it's nice to have these converters for when you have excess wind, but I would also say it's good to smooth out the wins by having a storage. And if you're doing like more than mostly wind, I would actually even say like get an extra storage even. Get like 2 storages. Just because having that even wins or evening out like your energy drain is really nice. Okay, so you just got a T2 con, you're upgrading that. Okay. I would actually okay, so let's look at the situation. So you know you're up against 2 players. You know that one of the players put a lot of money into pork, and you know the other player doesn't really have a ton of units, whereas you have quite a few. You have some pork to back it up. I would say here, you don't necessarily need to build units. You could actually just like pause this. The default key is W. I don't know what it is for grid. I don't even know if there's a key for grid. Not sure. I don't see it here. Oh, it's Y for grid. Pause or wait. But yeah, if you pause your factory, or if you know if you don't, or if you want to, the button for pause should also be here. It just so happens that on my settings I turned off some of the extra commands, so you don't see all the commands here. But there should be a waits down here, and so you can put your factory on waits to preserve your queue and pump more of your metal into building more metal. And that way you get your metal quicker, and then you can start using it quicker, type of thing. And then if you feel like okay, they're starting to get a bunch of units, I need to crank some more units out, then you can just unpause. But I'm definitely a big fan of. Not that I am the best at figuring out when to do this, but like I'm a big fan of like do eco or do units. If you need units, crank those units out with as much build power as you can, as much metal as you can, and then if you have a second to, if you don't necessarily need the units at the moment, stop the units, put everything into eco. And then it's like, oh, they're attacking me now. Now I need to quickly build units. Well, now move all your build power over to the units instead, and slow down or stop your eco production. And that way, it's kind of like it can be seen as like quote unquote greedy, but at the same time, it's sort of like if you're just building units just to have units and they're not really doing terribly much, there's no reason to really even have them. Might as well spend the money on getting your economy going even faster. And so that's just to me a good rule of thumb of playing at a higher level. Uh, spending as much resources on the thing that you need at the moment to get that thing sooner. All right, so Yeah, here you got a lot of damaged tanks again. That okay, so you are doing some repairs, so that's good. Definitely good to repair. Um, yeah, any opportunity to eat some of this metal, definitely try to. Especially since your commander has like full health still. You can take a few hits early on, but as T2 comes out, it's going to be harder and harder to take this metal, to reclaim it, that is. But yeah, you're doing some nice repairs now. Just would have liked to see it a little bit sooner. Alright, so you're getting your other mechs going. Alright. Start cranking out units. Yeah, I'd say around now is when you need to start worrying about, they might start getting T2 out. And so a lot of these T1 units that you're building are not going to be as useful really soon. Actually, here's the Sheldons, it looks like. Let's see if I'm right. Yeah, so you got some Sheldons to deal with here now. So that's exactly what I was just saying, is around now is like when you want to, or when you need to think about them having T2. So, at this point, it doesn't make as much sense to keep building T1. Since your T1 is medium tanks, it's not too bad, because medium tanks can absorb a lot of damage from things like Sheldons. So it is still a force to like stop them from attacking too hard. They're gonna have to slowly chip away at you instead of, doing a full-blown push. But yeah, it looks like you recognize that, you stop production, you're getting your T2, so yeah, all very nice stuff. I'd say when you do this, just eat your lab. Reclaim it, because that's 650 metal that could go towards building this faster. And towards getting your mechs faster. And actually with what I was saying before, with like you could pause your production and put more into eco, if you know that they're not going to do a big push, like, again, because there's a lot of pork, there's not much units, and especially once you start seeing T2, you could downright just eat your lab, and since you were gifted a T2 constructor, more of the metal and build power could go into building these faster, and getting your metal production even faster. And then once you start seeing units and stuff, then you build your T2 lab and start cranking out the units you need to defend it. I would also say in this situation, because you see a lot of, or because you see the HLT, because you see long range stuff that can attack you like this, I would say try to get a T1 builder out there and get a jammer. Let's see, yeah, this guy. So utility, jammer, Sneaky Pete. The nice thing about Armada T1 jammers is they're cloaked. They take a little bit of energy to keep them cloaked, but like just having them on the fronts, even if the front gets pushed through, like a lot of the times that cloaked jammer will actually still survive, so that can be used later. So it's quite nice to have. And I would say, like, positionally speaking, like it's nice to have them on like this, say like the sides, like say like, I don't know, maybe one there, maybe one down here, or maybe one like behind this rock instead. Because it's going to be harder for the units to actually like bump into it. So the units are going to go around this way and go around this way, and having a jammer there is going to be harder for them to bump into it and decloak it. But yeah, let's move on. You got a lot of artillery. I'd say that's not terribly necessary, especially if, well, I mean, it's fine to have it. I would just say earlier with all this artillery, you could have pushed all this pork back a little, a bit more, and then they would feel more pressured and maybe not get T2 as quickly, type of thing. But yeah, you are up against two. You do a fine job here, for the most part, and the artillery definitely shoo them away quite nicely. All right, so your T2's out, Mausers. I know one of your questions was, is this a good army composition? For now, it's just Mausers. Let's see what you add on a bit later, and I'll make more of a comment then on that. Yeah, this is smart. Just pulling back, you don't need to stand in their fire. Just pull back a bit. It looks like you got a jammer queued up. Okay, so you got a console coming out to do that. Oh, careful of the friendly fire. Oh, a few extra hits. Yeah, if you rush tanks in there like that, I would say maybe like manually fire with the artillery so they don't accidentally hit your units. Like you could attack a little bit further back. All right, so now you see a gauntlet, right? It's a gauntlet. Yeah. So you know that you have to deal with that artillery too. But yeah, since there's so much pork still back here, it's become more and more difficult to actually push this with your T1. Um, so while I definitely agree it's good to poke and see what's going on and all that, definitely need to pull back for now because most of your army is still T1. So you've got going on back here. Okay, your mexes are being upgraded. Okay, so now you're also adding on some Jaguars and those things. Actually, really quickly, I'm gonna check my notes on some stuff. I went through that. Oh, I missed the. So you lost your radar that was over here pretty early on, and I noticed that this was your only radar. Um, just note that this is a little spotty. Like there's certainly this whole area and this area here you can't really see with it. Radar's actually really cheap, and I would argue maybe just put like a secondary radar around, somewhere else to see some of those blind spots a little bit better. Would have helped with if you decided to push with your artillery and stuff. That is before they got the jammer and stuff. But yeah, sorry, that was just something I missed earlier. Let's see what else. I talked about the repairing. Yeah, reclaiming the corpses and stuff. Like obviously it's a bit late now, but now that T2's out and they got that range, it's harder to reclaim these. But you know, a couple hundred metal here does not seem like a big deal, but like it definitely adds up. I mean, you get like a few of these, and that's like a few extra tanks, or that means like you get your T2 out faster, or it means you get these upgraded mexes faster. Little things like that. But yeah, I'd try to reclaim as much as you can. Um, yeah, I think I covered a lot of that already. Okay, cool. Um, but yeah, Mausers are a fine choice against what are they called? Mortys. The do I have to look? Sheldons, that's it. Sorry, my brain turns off sometimes. But yeah, the Mausers are a fine choice against that. Actually, this is a good time to look at this really quick. So Mausers, it's not showing for me right now because it doesn't show allies, it only shows your own, but there's a widget that shows you the firing arc of the units that you have selected. So I know that the Mauser's firing arc, like if we were to just look at this one, it's like 180 degrees in front of it. So ideally you don't want to park them facing away like this, which that's, if you're retreating, that's pretty default, right? It's kind of hard not to do that. So if you retreat with Mausers, I would say retreat back, like basically set up, I'm going to turn off your view so I can select again. So basically, actually I will just select everything. If you're retreating, whoops, damn it. Usually people just set like a line like that, right? But with Mausers and things that have limited firing arcs like that, you actually want to retreat back and then do a secondary line. I queue up a secondary line that's a little bit more forward so that they're pointing the right way. Helps a little bit. Sometimes it's hard to get them to turn around when your opponent's pushing really hard, but here I think it would help a lot. Obviously these units are jammed, so like you can't really see too much anyways. But now yours are jammed as well, so that's nice. I would be cautious though. Actually, I think all your units, yeah, all your units are in the range, so that's fine. I was gonna say be careful, you don't step out of it, but yeah, looks all good. Okay, you're doing a converter first. I don't know if, well, I mean, so the converter is kind of nice if when the wind is high. Just right now it's super low, and you know, you don't have a ton of storage, so it's like dipping super fucking low. But now that wind's going back up, it's fine. Um, usually, uh, you want a fusion first, but yeah, since it's such a windy map, it's totally good. Nice. I like the gremlin to see, getting some extra vision. Oof. Yeah, those arbiters starting to do some work. Um, so the best thing against arbiters and things of long range like that is having jammers like this. So you want a jammer to cover your army, and you want to make sure nothing can see within it. You want to stop, scouts from running in and seeing your army. And it gets complicated because, as you move up and you play like, say, like higher lobbies, like people start doing like tick spam and stuff to get through here, see some stuff, or they'll start Janus, or not Janusing, Junoing to take out your jammers. So it definitely becomes more challenging at that point. But yeah, the best thing to do against arbiters is just try not to take those hits. Just dodge them. Gremlin's coming up to see. Okay, so you see that there's not really much here, so you're kind of pushing up a little bit. Okay. Yeah, this is nice because they can't even actually see you because of the jammer. Yeah, so now you see where the arbiters are. Target those down a little bit. Yeah, gremlins are definitely, like, having ghosts or specters, gremlins, all very nice to see stuff. Obviously, the gremlins are, I think they're low cost there. I could be mistaken. Actually, I kind of want to check that real quick if I can. Okay. What? I gotta take it off your view to select stuff. All right. So Ghost 135 and Gremlin is 230. Okay, so the Gremlins are a little costlier, but like, I mean, it's not that big a deal. It's better than not having it. Like if you're a Cortex, you wouldn't have it. But yeah, I would actually say like having a couple of those would be nice just to be able to spot, you know, just more stuff, and in case they get picked off or something. But yeah, I like that you found, you found a weakness. You took out the pork with your T2, and then you move in with your other units. Um, I would say be careful with Thors. I mean, sorry, not Thors, Jaguars, because they are very flimsy for T2. I mean, for T2 tanks are very flimsy. Um, and while it can be really nice to get those Jaguars through to attack a base or something, um, I would maybe poke a little bit first, see what's going on, you know, get some vision before you just quickly send them in, because that's, um, it's pretty annoying to lose a bunch of stuff like that. Um, scouting is very important, and you're doing some nice poking earlier, and I know you're capable, so I won't talk about it too much, but definitely would help a lot. Yeah, your front line's a little flimsy, but it looks like you got gifted some gunslingers, which I think are very cost inefficient for what they are. Um, but yeah, that's it's at least some tankiness for you. So that's nice. Oh, you get a commander. All right. First bull's out. All right, so good. I was gonna say like your front line's a little flimsy, so it'd be good to have things like bulls. So that this is a nice composition actually. Um, yeah, if you get your energy up a bit more, you could get some starlights in there too. Um, not that starlights are like the fix all or anything like that, but like, they have more range than the Mausers, and so they can be helpful, especially if you get pushed by a large army. All right, so this I think is what you were asking about. Towards the end, you do this big push. All right, and you're getting your second fusion. All right, so this I'm going to talk about quite a bit here. So let's see. I'm just looking at my notes really quick. So while it's nice to have a big push and potentially take out a base, it's very risky. And I think you've already you know that already. It's just a matter of like figuring out when can you do it, when can't you do it, when does it make sense, to and not do it. Um, and I would say first and foremost, when you take out a position, that's all porked up. Um, and you can expect some losses. Like your army's not going to be as good as it was. Like you're missing a lot of those jaguars and stuff. So I would say if you're going to make a push like this, I would wait because this does not have a lot of stuff for absorbing damage. Now, obviously, you see a lot of arbiters. You don't have to worry too much about that. But the thing of it is, if you push up here, that makes it pretty easy for this player to respawn this way. You know, the player that's here could send some units up here to respawns. Um, you know, in a lot of situations, like if you're in the middle, there'll be like another player that's up over here. They can do that. Another player could do that. So there's a lot of like points for you to like basically just lose everything. Especially when your army is Mausers, and again they have that firing angle that's a little bit more like that. It's 180 degrees in front of them, so things coming in from behinds and attacking them, they can't do anything about. So considering that it's basically Mausers and like a bowl and then some artillery, like you don't really have anything to defend these units. They can just attack forward. So I'd say that these are very susceptible to getting pushed and flanked from the sides. And at the same time, they're also very flimsy for T2. Um, so like they will die very quickly if you send them in. So it becomes a very high risk, and the reward is reasonable, but like there's just so much that could happen, could go wrong. So I would argue against it in this particular case, especially since you're going uphill. Anything that goes uphill gets slowed down. Um, I mean, I shouldn't say anything because there's probably some edge cases or a few units that I just don't know about or forgot about. Um, but yeah, it becomes even riskier because of the hill. Like you don't know necessarily what's up there to meet you. You don't know, and because your units are going up slowly, it's easy to take damage from shots. It's easier for these arbiter hits to actually hit your units because they're moving slower. So it's just something to keep in mind. It's just like know the map, know the hill in this case. Um, I would say it's a little bit safer to go down this way just because you're going downhill. The thing about going downhill, if you're using like a radar bot to spot for you, radar will not see downhill either until it gets to the edge. Like the edge will block it from seeing down below. Um, so it's a bit of a risk, but at the same time, like once you get to that edge, you can see a little bit further. But again, it leaves a lot of flank opportunity from the north or this side or up here. And I've learned that you cannot always rely on your ally to respond if say that this army moves up here, you cannot like expect them to respond and help defend you or push forward or whatever. Um, some players will just be AFK and not even think about it. Um, and I found even with like pinging, like sometimes you can ping people like, hey, like your guy's MIA, like they still don't respond. So like it's kind of up to you in a lot of cases, especially if you're playing this kind of lobby. In fact, that's one of the things I want to talk about at the end too. Is that once you get around 30 or once you get lobbies where you're the head guy, or when one of the top two players, let's say, it becomes more and more of a responsibility for you to carry, and so that becomes the struggle with playing this kind of lobby. I would actually argue that you're definitely at a spot where you could play like higher end lobbies and get a feel for those, and see how people play because they're a little bit different. A lot of don't be afraid of it either. There's definitely plenty of like 20s that play in those lobbies. There's definitely people that make tons of mistakes, that I would expect to see in this kind of lobby, but not that kind of lobby type of thing. Um, so yeah, definitely don't be afraid. It'd be a good learning opportunity either way. Like if you play lobbies like this, um, it'd be good to, it's like a tool to help you learn how to carry a little bit harder. If you play in those kinds of lobbies, it's more, can I keep up with, people that are closer to my level or above my level, and that like challenges you so that you can grow faster, type of thing. Um, but yeah, at this point, especially since like you don't have much here, like it's kind of okay to poke, but once you start losing units, just turn around because those are all going to be dead units. Um, you know, the other thing is like if your ally was also pushed up here, it's more okay to hold a position around here. If your guy below you and above you are also pushed in, then it's fine to stay in this area. But since they're back here, and since, I mean, you don't have to worry about north, obviously. So this is a little bit more okay because you don't have that northern player to deal with. But if you did, then I would say, definitely try to stay toe-to-toe with them and help them out if you can. But yeah, given that, like, you might want to just retreat back to like the center area, or if you want to greed for it, you can try to capture these two mexes and put your units here. But yeah, the hill's going to make it harder to defend up here. I'll clear some of this away. But yeah, the hill's going to make it harder to defend this area, and pushing up here is going to be even harder because of it. Sorry, I'm kind of harping on that a lot, but I hope it makes sense. Yeah, now that your bull is basically dead, and you don't have a spotter, especially because you don't have a spotter. If you had a radar in here, you could at least see where the dots are. But since you don't have a radar, you don't have a jammer, which I would highly recommend, by the way. Once you have a force, like they're not expensive at all. They're only, it's less than, like, each of these units costs less than a medium tank. And so you can jam your army so they can't keep barraging it with the arbiters. The radar not only has that like radar vision to give you the dots, it also has very good line of sight. 900 line of sight. Compared to the Mauser. Mauser only has 286 line of sight. The Bull has 494. So you're going into here relatively blind is a big deal actually. So having radar in there is really nice. The jammer would help a lot too. But yeah, these are I think very underestimated when it comes to lower tier. It's only when like you start meeting people that consistently put out jammers where it's sort of like, it doesn't make as much sense to just keep doing it, and then like tick and pawn spam become more valuable because they become your eyes when your radar and your jammer are toast. But yeah, at this point, since you don't have those frontal units, like this is basically suicide. You see how slowly they're going up the hill. Obviously, the arbiters are such long range or such high arc that like they basically still don't hit their targets. But even so, like as you can see, like it's pretty easy for your opponents to just like clean up those guys, especially since you don't have the range or the sight range. So yeah, pulling back. So since you lost all that, the other risky thing is you don't have an army now. Tanks are more expensive than bots, so like doing a play like that's a little riskier. And so, now your opponent has all this reclaim. Let's actually see how much it is. So there's 4,000 to reclaim here now, just in that area right there. Obviously, there's some more down here that you could also grab, which, these are commander wrecks, so you should definitely have grabbed these as you push forward with your commander or something. And don't be afraid to reclaim with some bots, or I'm sorry, with some vehicle cons. Obviously vehicles don't have their resurrection bots, but that doesn't mean that you can't reclaim. I'd highly recommend having, one or two construction vehicles up front to help reclaim if you don't want to endanger your commander. But also, to help build some more advanced stuff like that T2 jammer I was talking, or T1 jammer I was talking about. I like to use perimeter cameras on things like the hill because they can actually be placed on a lot of hills where they can't be knocked into, and they provide some nice vision. So like that's another thing you could think about doing for that stuff. Yeah, vision very important. Your gremlin was good, but I think a couple more of them would have been nice too. But yeah, I'd say that was probably the main takeaway with your battle. Um, Looking at tier 2 is just a lack of vision, lack of jamming. Obviously you got some jammers back here, but that's only back here. Having it with your army is quite nice. But yeah, I think this game is about wrapping up. Like your bottom's doing quite well. So it's considering like, your top's doing quite well, your bottom's doing quite well. Doing a play to see if you can get up here, like it's risky for you, but like since your team's doing so well, like it's not a big deal. It's kind of a good time to try stuff like that and feel out like, is this enough army or not? So I can't tell you, this is exactly how much army you need. It is very depends on the game, and so it's a feeling thing. You need to just feel it out a little bit. And games where your team is clearly winning like they are is a fine time to try stuff like that out. If you're worried about losing TS or anything like that. I would say these snake bite or rattlesnakes are not really necessary. They'd be more useful if you were up against like more expensive like bigger units, like say like tier 2 tanks. But if you're up against tier 2 bots, usually there's going to be a lot more of those bots, and they're going to move a lot faster than those tanks typically. I mean, not that they actually move faster than tanks, but like, the whole idea is like, things, faster units can dodge these shots. And these rattlesnakes, like even if they do hits and if there's more units, like it's not going to do that much. I would actually argue at this stage, it'd be better instead of getting those. Let's see. Instead of getting rattlesnakes, actually there isn't a lot of. I mean, beamers would be okay if you're up against spam, but I would actually say do some T1 defensive stuff. T1 defensive stuff like Dragon's Claw, also good for spam. Beamers, very nice against spam. And they're also, going to be pretty good against fiends and stuff too. But yeah, if you're looking at T2, there's the scorpions, which are, significantly cheaper than the persecutors and rattlesnakes, and can deal with spam a lot better if you have, because you can afford a lot more of them, type of thing. I don't mind putting down a few things here, especially given that you lost some stuff, but it's not. And actually, given what I just saw, okay, so defenses are not going to be great against arbiters. Period. In fact, I'm curious about the Tachyon. Let's see, arbiters have a range of where's it again? 1210. Right. Oh, that's a core bots. Well, let's see. What does the bulwark have for range? Let's see. 950. Kind of want to find an Armada builder really quick. Where's all the Armada builders? Oh, Nick Sala. I mean, I think everyone got gifted T2 core, so I see a lot of core. Okay, here we go. This guy. All right, finally. Darn it, let me select it. All right, so the Pulsar, 1400 range. Okay, so the Pulsar does outrange the Arbiters. But yeah, Arbiters are, they're anti-statics, basically. Anti-statics, anti-long range, and they're good in chokes. Obviously, this isn't much of a choke. It's a big open area. So I would say just don't even get these because they're even though they can outrange it, like I don't know, it's not it's close enough and stuff that the arbiters can still get in range and just take it out. I'd think about more on the unit side to deal with them. Um, yeah. Yeah, these guys here came to the support of yellow. Very good job on their ends. Um, but obviously you don't really need to do too much because bottom already cleared out bottom. Top already cleared out top. In fact, this guy could be definitely pressuring yellow. Okay, so yellow actually has some defense back there, which I don't always see. So that's nice. But yeah, all this goes back to losing all your army up there. But I will say, if you do lose your army up there, like yeah, it's kind of fine to try to defend this area, but realistically, it's not gonna pan out. Like they're probably going to defend it at some point, or I mean, you saw these units, I guess. So I mean, you kind of, I mean, or maybe you didn't see all the units, but like you saw enough of them that maybe, um, pulling back a little sooner probably would have been a little bit more ideal. Um, yeah, bulls and Mausers. Yeah, I think Starlights would help a lot here at this point. Just know that Starlights cost energy to fire. It costs quite a bit actually. I believe it's 1,000 per shot. Gosh, I forget things so quickly. So yeah, you're gonna want some extra energy and some storage if you're gonna do that. And then like the Mausers, they can only fire in a certain arc in front of them too, so you have to be careful with that. But yeah, I'll go back to the whole radar thing. So the radar is probably the biggest deal when it comes to the T2 part of this replay. There we go. Okay, your vision. So at this here you have radar because of this guy here, but ideally mobile radar so you can actually see the stuff to fire on it, because you're not using the range of your Mausers anymore once you get past that radar. Your allies do a nice job helping you out here. Even some atomic bombers, nice. Love to see it. Me too. But yeah, game is pretty much over. Let me look at my notes, see if there's anything I missed. So I guess just to quickly touch up on your questions. So dealing with arbiters, I think you did a reasonable job dealing with them in the early stages. Just like the best way to deal with them is to just not get hit by them. And so like moving your army around, pushing them forward and pushing them back. That way the arbiters just miss all their shots. Very nice kind of thing. But yeah, they are good against statics, so I went, knowing that you saw the arbiters all the way back here, I would maybe not get the rattlesnakes and just try to stay alive with the units. And if you get if you want like a hard counter to arbiters, like if they have only arbiters, which should be extremely rare, especially when you move up in rank, ticks are very nice. Well, ticks and pawns or pawns, I should say, are a nice way to deal with them. Are a nice way, honestly, a nice way to deal with a lot of things. So, um, always a good choice. Let's see. Correct army composition. So yeah, I'd say your army composition's fine. Against arbiters you can basically do a lot of different stuff. Jaguars are, you had your Jaguars. Yeah, I would say try to keep them with your army a little bit more, unless you're assaulting a base. And I think that's what you were doing. Is kind of like, okay, let's run up there real quick with the Jaguars and do a bunch of damage before they notice. But yeah, that's like I think you started doing that when you were around. Whoops, that was a weird draw. When you're around here, you sent the Jags up, and they just kind of got a little bit slaughtered. Even though Jags are fast, like again, this hill makes it hard for them to move past a lot of shots, so they do take damage, and so you did run into some opposition there. Um, but yeah, the Jags are mostly you mostly want them for anti-spam, anti-tick, anti pawn grunts. Doing a base assault with them is nice. They are kind of raiding units. It just gets risky. And so I would say at that point when you lost your Jags, you only had like a couple of bulls and a lot of Mausers. Um, I would argue try to just secure this area, build up a bigger force because you just lost some killing the pork, and then you can consider attacking up here or down here, uh, down this way. Um, and again, down's going to be a little bit safer because you're going to have a little bit better vision. But yeah, the main thing when you're doing an assault like that, try to get vision with your army, especially when your army is long range like those Mausers. So your army composition of the Mausers and stuff, totally fine. But yeah, I would just definitely argue to get a Prophet and an Umbra. Um, for the radar vehicle for that extra line of sight with that 900 line of sight and the extra radar, and then the Umbrella to cloak your or not cloak, but jam your units as they get pushed as they push up. So I think you took a lot of fire and didn't return a lot of fire because you couldn't see your attacker, and so you just kind of lost everything. Um, the other thing that is less risky that I would actually say is probably a better play, especially on this map because of the hill, would be to um, maybe crank out enough units to hold down here, grab this metal because grabbing these metal are kind of a big deal. They're very cheap compared to your advanced converters. Even though you had advanced converters and some fusions at that time, like they're very expensive compared to those extractors. So even if it's a T1 extractor, right away it's that's better than nothing. Um, what was I just saying? But yeah, so you get enough units to defend that area, grab those extractors, and then you could spend more on eco and get greedier. Um, to me, it's a much better, safer play, especially at higher levels, um, to basically greed as much as possible. Um, whether that means like, okay, you got a bunch of units, like say it was a 1v1, and you have some units here, they have some units here, but they also have like a bunch of pork just everywhere. Like they kind of did this time. The more pork you see, the less push potential they have. So they can't push you if you have at least some units around, right? Um, so when you see a lot of pork and not many units, and you can handle those units, you could actually just cut the production of units, or even eat the lab. Don't eat the lab if you're worried that they could push you. Definitely there's some caution to take with that. But if you eat the lab and either you can go for T2 sooner, like if nobody's given you one, or if you were given one, then you get your extractor sooner, um, and just like eco and greed a little bit harder, type of thing. Um, yeah, I would say even um, like that's definitely something I've started doing that works out pretty well a lot of the time, as long as you don't get pushed really hard, and oftentimes you won't. Um, like if you have an area jams, it's harder for them to like feel comfortable with pushing when it's jammed. Um, but yeah, even if I'm not gifted a T2, I'll build the T2 lab, get my constructor from it, eat the lab immediately, and then use that metal to boost out these mexes as soon as possible. And then once I have the mexes, I'll think about a fusion at some point. Obviously, these T2 extractors take a lot more energy, so you're going to want to keep up with energy. Um, but yeah, at some point you probably want a fusion, and then like in some cases it's like I start getting pushed, I start getting worried about it, and I'll build that lab back, or maybe I'll build the T1 lab back and build units, like regular T1 units to defend against the T1. Um, because taking all the time to build the lab again and cranking out like a couple of T2 units is not going to save you against a big T1 push. Um, if it's a big enough push, you want to just crank out T1 units as quickly as possible. So I would say, in some cases you want the T1 lab um, for the units before you want the T2 lab for units. But yeah, I'll eat the lab. I'll get my economy going. If I feel pressured, then I'll build the lab. I'll basically it'll kind of look like oh, frontline is eco and this guy's crazy, but like in a way that's like what all the really good players will do. It's like, why spend money on units that basically the rule of thumb is if you have the units, you want to use them. And if you aren't going to use them, just get enough to defend with them and greed as much as you can behind it, because that means more units later on. And then, oh, I should have just kept it paused. I forgot I was at the end. But yeah, I would also say, remember, take this mechs. Don't forget to repair your medium tanks and stuff with your commander. Having some extra guys repair is good. Or extra builders to repair is good. And you can use your builders to like crank out a couple of nanos if you want to help repair. And it just, just secures the area a little bit better, type of thing. You had some good spotting with your gremlins, but yeah, radar and stuff, very big deal. Let's see. I think I talked about the hill enough. I'm not going to go over that again. I hope that makes sense. And if you have any questions, definitely ask. Definitely ask. It is a very difficult thing to understand. But yeah, as a rule of thumb, if you see more pork, it's easier to greed. If you are up against 2 players instead of 1, it's harder to greed. So like, I think you did an okay job actually this game. You saw 2 players, but you also saw a lot of pork. And if those 2 players didn't do pork and instead they had all the units, you could easily be overrun. So I'd say in that case, get more defensive structures. Ideally, not light laser towers. Just I would say beamers in this case probably. Beamers, jammer, repair stuff. Like the nanos to help repair. Especially because you saw 2 players with bots. If you saw a player with vehicles, just know that artillery can easily wipe out any defensive T1 structure. So be mindful of that. You don't want too much, defensive structures if you're against artillery. Let's see. I feel like I'm starting to go in circles, so it's probably a good time to. Well, let me double check. Yeah, I think I pretty much covered it all. But definitely, if you have any questions, feel free to ask within the thread. I'll definitely keep checking back in on it. And I hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching.